Before we start, could I just ask you to turn to somebody you don't know in here and just introduce yourself? It just makes a friendlier atmosphere. So if you're just coming in or if you've been in here for a little while, could you find somebody you don't know and just introduce yourself? And just say, hello, I'm so-and-so. Okay? Please. Noriko. Come. Hey, excuse you. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So I'm Tim Murphey. I'm from Japan, or rather I teach in Japan, and I work at Kondo University of International Studies. And today I'm presenting on intensifying young learner foreign language development with co-learning adults. And I added a whole bunch of other things that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I'm going to have time to. I really enjoy teaching and I enjoy research and I enjoy doing these presentations because I learn a lot doing them. I asked you to introduce yourself to each other because I think community is very, very important. And one of the main ideas about young learners developing with co-learning adults is trying to increase their community. As adults, we all have a little bit more agency. We control our environments a little bit more. We know how to meet people, but little children may not. And so increasing their community of learners, meaning their parents or their teachers in the classroom, to co-learn a foreign language with them can be very, very important. Okay? And I think even parents like it when they can start learning with their children. It makes things more collaborative and they find out more about it. I'm going to show you first a very quick video, okay, of some children learning, all right? And then I'll explain it a little more afterwards. But basically, you might be asking yourself, what are these students actually learning, these children, okay? And we're going to jump straight to the chase. So let's see. I like your shirt, I like your pants, I like your shoes and socks. I like the way you do your hair, you look just like a bear. Okay, everybody, ready? Point to your shirt. I like your shirt, I like your pants, I like your shoes and socks. I like the way you do your hair, you look just like a bear. Okay, turn to somebody beside you and point to them. Yeah, exactly. You do it. Okay? Have a partner. Partner, okay? And everybody sing. Okay? Ready? Sing with me, okay? Ready? I like your shirt, I like your pants, I like your shoes and socks. I like the way you do your hair, you look just like a bear. Okay, could you turn to somebody beside you and ask, what do you think they were learning? What did they actually learn during this sequence, or what was happening in this microgenetic developmental process, perhaps? Okay, could you ask? What do you think? What was happening in that? Noriko, could you share with him? Okay, any comments, anything that you noticed about what they might have been learning? What are your ideas? They're getting acquainted with each other. Excellent, yes. They're doing it in partners. Yeah, they're getting to know each other. Are they learning much English? Maybe not, I don't know. But they are associating with each other, right? They're doing pair work. It's TPR, total physical response more. It's actually touching things and moving their bodies. And I really don't think they learned a lot just in that one session, okay? But this was in Nagoya about 10 years ago, and for about 6 months I taught this group of children who the parents were obliged to come with their children with video cameras to video the children interacting with me in English. Okay? And the idea was that they would go home and show the video of their child interacting with other children in English, supposedly, with TPR, doing the actions, singing the songs. Just in this one sequence, we heard the song 3 times. If the parents actually played this over and over again at home, there would be lots of repetition and the layering on of meaning, okay, of meaning unto the actions of what they were actually doing. And you can imagine that, there might be a song stuck in the head phenomena, where the song gets stuck in the head and they start singing it over again. And little children do this all the time, okay? So one of my main points today is that video is an extremely useful tool for foreign language teacher impoverished places. Meaning, when teachers, there's a foreign language specialist somewhere who can go in and teach the language in an elementary school once a week for 30 minutes or something like that, it's not going to work just once a week, 30 minutes. How can you expand that? Well, with artifacts, with video artifacts especially. If you can send those home with children and with students and let them see it over and over again. The other thing that's amazing about video is identification. They start identifying themselves when they see themselves as a speaker of the language, as a user of the language. I'm singing this song, I'm understanding it, I'm touching my friend's shirt or whatever. And it can be the identification factor is extremely strong, okay? And very, very useful for them. And I'm an English speaker. Wow, amazing. And even though they're not speaking right here, okay? So, Nagoya, we did that for 6 months, and unfortunately we didn't do any follow-up research. This was 10 years ago, and I really, really regret it. I would have loved to send a questionnaire to the parents, how many times did you play the video every week and so forth, and I missed an opportunity. But I still think, because I did see the children every couple of weeks, that there was progress being made, okay? And not only with the children, though, with the parents. I noticed the parents enjoying themselves more, okay? They would come with their video cameras and they really enjoyed video. And after a while, they just set up the video camera and then they would start singing and playing with the children more in English, okay? The other main point today is that when an adult actually allows their child to see that they are a learner also, it's a near-peer role modeling process. I don't know if you know about near-peer role modeling, but that's normally we say that children model other children similar to them. They're near peers, same age, and usually it's same gender very often. But when it doesn't mean that adults cannot be very influential in their upbringing, okay? And when they start showing that I'm a learner too, I make mistakes, please teach me, help me, remember this song, it can be extremely powerful, okay? And the parents kind of join their community of learners, and it's amazing. I'm going to concentrate for the first few slides on parents, and then we're going to transfer to homeroom teachers, especially in Japan, who don't know any English, who are receiving outside help also. Okay, but increasing this community for the child, I think, is extremely important. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Let me go on here. That was Nagoya in Japan in 2000. I left Nagoya in 2001 and went to Taiwan for 2 years. I resigned from my position because of the entrance exam system, but that's another story that we can talk about some other time. And in Taiwan, I had a colleague at the university that I was at who had triplets. These 3 girls there are triplets. They're 19 now, but this was about 9 years ago. I mean, this wasn't. I taught them 9 years ago when they were about 12 years old. They're all in university now. And I was just amazed. I would go there once or twice during a month and to their house and play with them, juggle, do more or less what I was doing also in Nagoya. And we would video them off and on, and I videoed them over a 1.5 year time period, and I kind of see how they improved and progressed. And it was amazing to me. But it was also amazing because they had an ideal environment with their parents. Their father was a scientist, and he spoke English, and every day when he drove them to school, he asked them questions in English. He played in English with them, okay? And it reminded me of my own father, who we had about a 30-minute drive also in high school, and he used to speak French to me all the time and sing French songs, and I could tell that he really enjoyed it, and he really looked forward to it, and it was fun. And I learned more French with him than I did in the 2 years of French in high school. This was something that was real. This was coming from a real person, and he was asking me real questions, and it was really interesting. Their mother was an elementary school music teacher, and so all the songs that I was singing, she quickly replicated them and played with them and did all kinds of stuff. So they had kind of an ideal environment of parents, okay? I still think, though, that parents who don't know the language, who aren't necessarily teachers, can be enlisted by teachers to help their children learn more. Occasionally I've experimented with university classes even of sending letters home with my university students saying, please get your parents to read this, translate it to them, and tell them what you're learning and ask them if they would cooperate with you and teach them this set of idioms or teach them this song. And getting the students to actually teach somebody else is very, very powerful, okay? And several times students have said, wow, my mom really likes English and she wants me to teach her more, okay? So enlisting the parents is extremely powerful. Yeah, this is a quote actually from one of my university students. These days I speak to my mother, my sister, and my dog in English at home. If I want to be a good English speaker, I have to be language hungry, and I won't be afraid of making mistakes. Maybe they, mom, sister, and dog, feel to be spoken to in English is strange, but I will continue. Okay? This is a student who has agency and has autonomy. Self-determination theory basically says that as an adult, we decide what we want and then we kind of go for it and we take action. The difference, though, with university students and small children is small children often don't, they might decide I want that or say that, but they don't have the necessary decision factors. Can I really ask my mom to speak English to me? Can I really ask my homeroom teacher in elementary school who only speaks Japanese to me? Can I ask her to speak to me in English sometimes? And that's why I think we need to recruit, okay, adults in the environment of the children to learn, to co-learn with them, to have fun with them, to make mistakes also with the language, okay? In Canada, they're probably the most vocal and most forward-looking, the Canadian Parents for French. Basically, they were very instrumental in getting French immersion programs into Canada in the first place, okay? And they wanted that to happen. And apparently, French teachers do send home to all of the parents what they're doing in class and ask for reinforcement from parents, and it's very, very powerful. I'm going to switch now to teachers who may not know the foreign language that the child is learning and look at how teachers might learn more with the students. I had a MA student when I was at Tokyo University in Saitama, Japan, and for her thesis she went into 3 different elementary schools over a 2-month period, and this was at a time when they had first started asking elementary schools to teach English, but of course none of the teachers knew English. And so how could they teach? And so from my university, we were sending 3rd and 4th year university students who were majoring in English into the elementary schools for just 30 minutes once a week to teach a class. And it was fun songs and TPR and things like that, very simple things. But Terumi had the idea of actually videoing them and then leaving a copy of the video with the teacher and asking the teacher to set up a time every day to replay the video, okay? So there was some sort of replication. The students could see on the video themselves in the class, and they could see the teacher also participating, okay? And the teacher would play the video, and she also encouraged the teacher to, to talk to them and ask them the questions. How do you say this? Is my pronunciation right? And so forth. And to co-learn with them, okay? Again, this is amazing how instrumental videoing can be as an artifact to keep replicating what you've done in a class. It's not just a one-shot thing, it's many different times. She said in her thesis, with videoing, students learn not only English, but also how to socialize. They compared friends, teachers, and themselves and learned from the differences and to construct identities. Okay? So again, seeing yourself on video is an amazing thing. How many of you have seen yourself speaking a foreign language on a video? A few of you? Okay. I don't do it often enough myself, but when I do have some old tapes of me speaking Japanese, but when I see myself speaking Japanese, I go, I could do that better. I like that. Wow, I didn't know I could say that so well. And it's just an amazing apparatus, the video, to span time zones. It's something that was recorded at a present time, then it goes into the past, and then it projects me into the future. And it's just an amazing thing. Looking at another program in Florida, where there's lots and lots of Spanish speakers, and the elementary schools in Florida, they asked them to teach Spanish. They didn't have enough teachers. And Tony Erbun in the University of South Florida in Tampa, with his graduate students, created something called SEED, Support for Elementary Educators Through Distance Education in Spanish. And all they did was put up really simple lessons in Spanish that elementary school teachers could learn by themselves with their students, okay? And so it was kind of self-directed. There was no video involved so much, but it was just very, very simple exercises to do with their children. And that was back in 2003, and I tried, the web pages are still up, but I tried to contact the researchers and I didn't get any response this year, so I'm not sure if it's still operating. We need to check that out further. I just became aware of this association from a colleague, the National Staff Development Council. It's 40 years old, and I was just very interested in a couple of their beliefs that they stated. Number one, every student learns with every educator when every educator engages in effective professional learning. And this is the point that if the teacher isn't learning, chances are students are not learning. Okay? We need to be thinking about learning with our students, and that it's the learning profession. Teaching is the learning profession, and we need to continue learning. And the whole thing about collaborating, number two, school's most complex problems are best solved by educators collaborating and learning together. And for me, this is Tim Murphey down there, the question mark, is this also include parents and students? I would want to include parents and students in this collaborating to solve any educational problems if possible. And how can we recruit the parents more? How can we recruit students and get them to think critically, okay, about improving their own education if possible? Even at a young age, it might be possible. So, more explicitly, what do I expect of teachers and parents is that they can model really good learning strategies and be near-peer role models. Basically playing with the language at home, asking parents to play and sing songs, asking them to practice shadowing with their children, asking questions. Kiku wa itoki no haji, kikanu wa isho no haji. Asking is a moment's embarrassment, not asking is a lifelong regret, they say in Japanese. And getting students to feel free to ask. Making mistakes, when parents or teachers actually make a mistake in the foreign language and kids can correct them, that's a really neat moment. It's a near-peer role model moment, and it's very, very helpful. And finally, incremental learning. The whole idea, Carol Dweck is a professor emeritus at Stanford University, and she has several books out on self-theories. And she says that many children grow up and they basically adopt an entity theory. Entity means it's just a state. I'm either good or bad. Okay? I'm either right or wrong. And if I'm not good, I don't want to do it. If I am good, I don't want to try anything new because I might show people that I'm not good. Okay? So that it makes them non-risk takers. Whereas if they have an incremental belief, it means that, it's normal to learn gradually, little by little. Okay? And to make mistakes is part of the process. It's normal. Okay? So parents who make mistakes learning actually show this incremental process. Oh, we have to learn it little by little. Okay? But if we say you have to have it right, our testing system basically says you have to have it, you're either good or bad, you're right or wrong. Okay? So over-testing actually inculcates an entity belief in a society very much. Okay? A very simple example of entity belief. When I was about 5 years old, I wanted to learn how to play the piano because my older sisters played the piano. And I went and started banging on the piano, and it didn't sound like my sisters at all. And so I said, I'm not a musician. I can't play the piano. And I had an entity belief for a long, long time. Okay? So it's situational. It's not across the board necessarily. And you can change. When I give juggling balls to students to learn how to juggle, very often they'll try it out and they'll drop a few, and then they'll say, I'm not a ball person. Okay? That's an entity belief coming out right there. And I say, relax, relax. We'll just play with one ball at a time. And then we incrementally grow up to 2 balls and then to 3 balls, and then they start getting comfortable making mistakes in front of me, and then they learn. And it's fascinating, really fascinating. But incremental believing is extremely important, and it can be taught by parents and teachers co-learning with their children. It can be one of the most important things. I think I'm going to stop there for just a second and give you guys some air. Could you please ask your partners, do you understand most of everything I've been saying? Do you have any questions? Summarize. What are you thinking right now? Maybe you've gone off into another tangent. Okay? So I'll give you a minute break. Please talk to your partner. What's happening? I think it was John Holt that actually said that the biggest enemy of education is the talking teacher. Teacher talking too much. And I'm pretty convinced that you're probably learning the most when you talk to each other, actually. And getting students to be very, very interactive is probably the best way for learning to happen. And I usually in my normal classes present for just maybe 5 minutes, and then I ask my students to summarize to each other and to discuss it in different ways. Unfortunately for the video, I'm going to have to talk a little bit more. Another way of looking at education is Barbara Rogoff's 2001 book. That's here, Learning Together. And basically it's a series of chapters by herself and other teachers in a cooperative school, an open school, basically, where parents, if they put their children in this elementary school, they have to agree to come 4 or 5 hours a week and spend time in the classroom with their children and other children. And basically they're teacher aides, okay, and they're helping out. But parents get a feel for what their children are doing and what the teacher is doing, and then they kind of often replicate that at home. And there's not a clear divide between, this is what we do in school and this is how we act at home. But they can learn in both places, and it's a larger learning environment. The parents learn a lot, okay, about what their children are learning, but they also are learning themselves. The teachers learn a lot about the relationships between parents and children also, and they seem to adjust more. The community just becomes bigger, okay, and it can be a really, really interesting thing. I was at HPU yesterday, and Jean Kirschman was telling me this is also happening in other places. In Hawaii Literacy, there's a MA student who's teaching there, teaching Chinese moms and preschoolers together here in Hawaii. Okay. There's also a Ford Foundation HPU teacher in Vietnam reportedly teaching multi-age classes of adults and children together, okay, at the same time. And I know in Japan, I know they have special classes also for mothers and small infants even. Okay. So here at the University of Hawaii also, you've got Peter Dowrick and his graduate students who work a lot with video futures. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically they've done it for handicapped and for different psychological reasons. But the one that I'm familiar with is the reading. They apparently, I'm probably going to get it all wrong. You'll have to look it up. But they identified the lowest 10% in the 4th grade in reading in the schools in Hawaii, and they would send out tutors. And the tutor would sit beside one of these children and read a book with them. And the tutor would read one line, and then the child would just repeat it. They were being videoed. The video was only on the child, though. And then they would edit the video and take out the tutor's voice and give a video, a trick video, if you like, to the child. The child knew it was a trick video, but they could take it home and show it to their parents and watch it. And this was them reading a book, apparently, even though they knew it was a trick video. Okay? And their parents maybe sometimes said, "Wow, you're a reader." Okay? And they see themselves on there reading a book. And they identify themselves as a reader. Okay? So again, this is the power of video, of seeing yourself doing something can be extremely powerful. Yeah, it's amazing. I do suggest that you go into I think it's educational psychology department, and he does some really wonderful work. Okay? So the implications for teachers is to make artifacts so that you can replicate them later on, okay, at home, in the classroom. I do a lot of language learner histories in my own class. I get students to write their own histories, and then I can read them and I learn more about them. And they sometimes take those home, okay? And they're reflective, they're constructions, they're constructing identities, okay, when they write their history, all right? And the second main implication is to make communities, okay? Try and get more people involved, and even asking students, who else in your environment could help you learn this foreign language, okay? And trying to find them. This is a page out of a book, a booklet that we made for junior high school children here in Hawaii. It was 2 of my HPU students about 4 or 5 years ago, actually, who went into a junior high school, and they couldn't do language learning histories because the students were just new immigrants. They didn't have enough language. They did sentence frames, okay, and what they liked, what they don't like, and so forth. And I'm just imagining now, there's this one sentence here: when I grow up, I would like to be and it's blank. So the child, no idea perhaps, or maybe they don't understand the question, but they're definitely interested in surfing, okay? That's the free picture they're doing there. But I imagine this child also with this child in the same classroom and interacting. And this child, when I grow up, I would like to be an businessman, he says, okay? And he's drawing a graduate from college, okay? And my point here is that when students like this can interact, they actually feed each other possible selves, all right? And it's not coming from the teacher that you should go to college or you should be this way or do this. It's coming from a peer, near-peer role model that they can model much more easier. They can step into their shoes. They can imagine doing it much more easily, okay? And again, teachers who allow students to interact with information, everybody becomes the teacher then. It's not just from the front, okay? It's everybody who's teaching everyone. And that community gets so much richer, okay? Judith Rich Harris, back in 1998. Some of you may know her book, The Nurture Assumption, Why Parents Don't Matter as Much as You Think. All right? And she did some wonderful research. She was basically a textbook writer for psychology, and she started noticing all these patterns from all these psychology studies, and she decided to write her own book, her own articles and things. And basically what the research was showing was that after children start going to school, the number one influence on their personalities is not their parents, and it's not even their teachers, it's their peers. It's the kids they're with most of the time. And those are their near-peer role models in my terminology, okay? Those are the ones that they're with. When I wrote Group Dynamics in the Classroom with Zoltan Dornier, we talked a lot about trying to get a good group dynamic, because if they are modeling each other a lot, the better group dynamic you have, the better everybody wants to really learn the material. It's contagious, it's emotional contagion, and it gets really, really exciting. And so we were capitalizing on this peer effect. But later on I started thinking more and more that it's not that adults can't have a big influence. And all of you, if you remember your childhood, you probably do remember a few adults who had a huge influence on your life. So it's not that they can't, it's just that most don't, probably. And the amount of time you spend with them also is important. And I think adults can be peers if they'll join the community of learners, if they'll do things like make mistakes with the language, if they play with it, if they, like my father, basically, singing French songs with me to going to school, or with the Taiwanese group, okay, the father engaging his daughters. So it's a possibility, but I don't think it happens, and it won't happen with small children unless teachers and researchers encourage that more. And that's the purpose of this video, basically.